Welcome everyone, and thank you for joining us for another webinar with Penny and Emily. And today, the Productivity Bureau are bringing us a webinar on how to keep on top of your emails, which is something as freelancers and entrepreneurs and being parents as well is really hard to juggle everything. So any technology and tips that can keep us sane from the bombardment that we get from all of the emails that we get every day um, would be super helpful. So looking forward to hearing what Emily and Penny have to say. So over to you guys.
Okay, thanks, Dahlia. So I'll kick off. Before I start talking, I'm gonna just do a quick housekeeping thing, which is that I'm in an office which is very eco-friendly, and the lights are on a timer. So if I sit still for too long, the lights go out. And just waving my arm won't do it. I'm going to have to get up and walk across the room and come back to get them back on again. So if I suddenly get plunged into darkness mid-sentence, that's what's happened. It's not a disaster. I'm going to have to get up, walk across the room, and come back again. So there's nothing like live, hey? But in this webinar, we're going to be talking about how you can manage your communications and your email in a more sustainable way. But before we get on to that, I think we should probably introduce us. So I'm Emily. I'm one half of the Productivity Bureau. We help business owners become more personally effective, more focused, better time managers, and better CEOs of their business. We will help you with streamlining systems and processes and finding more efficient ways of working, and also tools and technologies to take the stress out of running your business. So I'm the kind of nitty-gritty process technology side of the business. I've got over a decade of experience as a PA, an executive assistant, and a BA, an ops manager. And over the years, I have managed some pretty seriously crazy inboxes. So I'm going to hand over to Penny, who's going to introduce herself, and then we'll get started.
Thanks, Emily. So yes, I'm Penny Duckworth. I've been a productivity coach for the last 2 years, 2.5 years nearly, and I started off life in advertising, in project management. I guess one of the most fast-paced industries out there. At one point when I was a studio manager, I was receiving about 400 emails a day. Obviously not all actionable ones, but they were all in my inbox. So I had some first-hand experience of keeping control of my own emails, and obviously over the years I've been managing managing small teams in projects and larger teams through advertising, and been able to coach people in that environment to be helping them keep on top of their emails. And obviously that is what led me into the more personal side of the business. So you could say that I kind of deal with the personality and the emotional side, if you like, of Productivity Bureau. So the coaching that I've been giving over the last few years, and as part of Productivity Bureau, has been much more kind of personal methodology in your own time, and the way that you view your work as a whole, rather than just the kind of operational side from a business point of view. So that kind of, yeah, that's where I came from, and that's how it's kind of evolved. And obviously, me and Emily make the whole of Productivity Bureau at the moment, and yeah, that's where our two sides kind of merge. So yeah, I hope that we can both help you today with your email management. Over to you, Emily.
Okay, so let's get started. So email is going to be a part of your life, whether you're self-employed or whether you're employed. And I'm going to describe a scenario to you, which maybe you might find familiar. So give me a holler if any of this rings true for you. So your inbox is dictating your work pattern. Things are getting held up because you're not responding quickly enough. People are chasing politely, but you can feel that they're kind of getting frustrated. You're missing opportunities because you feel like you're on an endless treadmill with no time to do any actual productive work. I'm going to bring Penny in. I'm going to bring Penny in now to talk about some of the. I'm just seeing on the message. Yes, Tara just saying yes. She totally recognises that. Don't worry, you're not alone. I'm going to bring. Oh, I can see someone's also typing a message. I'm going to bring Penny in to talk about. Yep, and another. Good. Right, you're in the right place, ladies. So I'm going to bring Penny in before we start talking about this email system that I'm going to introduce. I'm going to bring Penny in to talk about go back to basics really, and talk about some really fundamental things that you need to have in place in terms of the way that you work to lay the foundations for managing your email properly.
Yeah, so before we can really, I mean, a huge part of this presentation is going to be about some nitty-gritty, some methods, and that is ultimately the crux of what we want to offer here. We want to offer some practical help. Like, no one wants to just be told to fuck up their ideas. They want to actually know how to do it. But before we do that, there is something quite fundamental to the culture of work that we're in at the moment that we need to lay straight and build on that, if you like. So that is where we need to start. I've labelled it the always-on culture. I mean, that's something that, say, Simon Sinek touches on when he's talking about the Y generation or whatever it is. There's notifications for everything that we own. The settings on our phones, our email clients, whether we're at work or at home, even social media accounts, they're all automatically set to immediately notify us if there's new activity. I don't really know who decided that was always the default. I guess maybe the culture came first and the settings came second, or maybe the settings, who knows where that happened. But it's happened and it's real for everyone. And unless you consciously decide to change your notifications and your settings, it's something that is kind of embedded in our culture. It's taught us a few lies, which is really hard actually to notice have happened, even though we all kind of deep down know there's something slightly wrong about that. We kind of taught that, like, our brains get kind of a kick out of. It's actually a kind of a scientific proof. I was done a bit of research into this with a lady called Barbara. I'll share the link later. But she said that there's kind of like a kind of a drug in your brain that's like triggering, and Simon Sinek said this as well, to say, like, you get a kick out of hearing a notification or being or ping, and you think, ooh, what's that? And you can't necessarily, even though logically you might be like, well, it might be nothing. That it's a similar kind of thing going on in your brain to when you have a high, or like some kind of very exciting thing happening in your life. So it's equated to the same endorphins that trigger that, and even though we might not consciously want to, we kind of connect that with something, a good feeling, and so it's actually quite hard for us to switch off our notifications. So we get into this culture of being always on. The other lie that we tell ourselves, and we don't always do this consciously again, is that everything needs to be responded to immediately. So whether it's the fact that we just get a kick out of it and therefore we read it and think, oh, I need to do that, or we have this pressure inside us thinking, okay, everyone is always on, so we need to deal with this right now. We've created this snowball situation, which has created all these kind of always on habits. So I think it's probably quite obvious what I'm going to say. The first step to changing this is switching off these kind of notifications on our phones and on our computers. I know that for a long time on Outlook, when I was at work, I didn't realise that you could switch off the kind of little thing that comes up in the right-hand corner of your screen to say, I've just had an email, rather than just obviously opening the email client now again. And I mean, there are obviously sometimes when things are immediate, but we can get a blur between what's immediate in reality and what has just become immediate because that is the culture. that's what everyone's entrenched in. So that's like the basic foundation of this, and if we were to build on that more practically, then it's something I posted in our Productivity Club Bureau today, is the kind of more, the principle underlying this is that we need to be, we can't multitask. Like, as much as we think that we can flip between jobs and have this always on way of working, we're actually most efficient when we stick at one task thoroughly and then systematically move on to another task. And that is just the way our brains are wired. Like, whether we're a multitasking woman of the new age, or whether we're a plodding caveman, our brains are wired like that. We just work better when we have one channel to focus on. So then that means that we start to, like, this is the same for everything, whether it's a meeting that we're in or whether it's thinking time, like something that takes a lot of focus, or even just email inbox time, it's the same. And that's when we need to start thinking about blocking time in our diary. So, and that's what I mentioned in the video today. Work in chunks, like, it's not the end of the world if you don't look at your email for 4 hours, for example. Obviously, it depends on the business that you're in and the demands that you have, and obviously these kind of things can come up in questions at the end. But in most cases, what I've seen work really well is a morning session of email, and then an after lunch session of email, and then a food work session of email. So in total, you might be in your inbox for perhaps 2 hours or something like that a day, 2 or 3 hours. And I have definitely had to stick to that. The example I gave of my 400 a day emails, there was no way I could be in my inbox all the time. It wouldn't work. That would be literally all I would do. So I did do chunking then, and then that would obviously roll into other forms of chunking in your diary, like if you could set a certain time in your day when you only do email and not meetings, for example, or something like that, protect certain periods of time. So that, I guess, I wanted to touch on that as a principle. As Emily said, this is laying a foundation, so then the method is kind of built on top of that. So that was really the main point. Say no to the always on culture, and stop notifications, and try and chunk your time so that you're protecting certain times that you know and certain times for other things. So with that, I hope that we can move on to Emily and her steps to having a nice, clear and controlled email inbox.
Cool. Thanks, Penny.
No worries.
Cool. So once you've got a system of time chunking your work time in place, as Penny says, you might only be checking your emails at certain very particular times of the day. So managing your email under those circumstances is going to require a two-pronged approach. First of all, you want to be reducing the amount of things that are actually ending up in your inbox. And the second thing you want to be doing is creating an effective system for dealing with what absolutely has to land in your inbox, and make sure that you're dealing with that as efficiently as you possibly can. So I'm going to talk you through a very, very simple approach, and I mean really, really seriously simple, which is going to help you take control of your inbox and manage your communications more effectively. I appreciate that everybody has different ways of working, but I've used this approach as with people in all types of disciplines and all types of industries, and I promise you, if you stick to it, it really does work. So let's talk about reducing the amount of stuff that's coming into your inbox. Now, the way of doing that, I'm afraid, is probably going to be unique to your business. So you are really going to have to think about what's coming into your inbox regularly. What are the patterns, and why is it going there? Why is it coming to you? And it's worth sort of sitting down and sort of noting that down, maybe on a piece of paper. Because once you've done that, you can start to look for ways that you can get some of the routine stuff to bypass your email. I'll give you some examples right now that can help maybe kickstart that thinking and get your creative juices flowing. So Number one will not probably be a surprise to anybody who's ever read any article about how to manage your email. It's unsubscribe. Unsubscribe from any newsletters or promotional material that you don't really need. You can, I'm not saying that you have to completely eliminate any of that stuff, or, all of that stuff. You can use a filter to sort of filter out the items that you really do need. You can put them in they can go automatically into a separate folder, and then you set a time every week maybe where you go and you look at, you go and you look through that, you diarize it and make sure that you look through that and catch up with all of that stuff. I'll talk about filters a little bit more later, but that's your first step, unsubscribe. The second thing is to think about things like maybe online forms that you can use for things like information gathering and survey, getting stuff from other people. I'll give you an example of a client that I've been working with over the last few months who every 2 years they send out a survey collecting data on the kind of current levels, service levels for various health bodies around the country. They've always traditionally done this using a Word document they email around to loads of doctors. Not only is that a pain in the backside for the person that has to actually fill the damn thing out, it's also a massive email onslaught for the person who's on the receiving end of it. This year, I set up a really simple Google form for the responders to fill in. It's really quick. It also means that none of the data is going via my inbox. It goes straight into a Google sheet. So I don't have to do anything with the emails. I just go and check the sheet. So that's, think about when you've got projects going on, think about where the email points are going to be and see what you can do to try and ameliorate that. The next thing I'm going to talk about is signposting. Think about the questions that people, customers, clients, anybody who's coming to you and asking on a regular basis. Is there something that you can put on your website that answers those questions? Is there something that you can make more prominent, perhaps, on your literature or your website or any of the other ways that people might come into contact with your business? That's going to reduce the number of questions, the number of times they have to kind of get in touch with you directly. Are there processes that you can put in place to get customers possibly to self-help, and rather than having to kind of constantly refer back to you? Meetings and bookings are another thing that take quite a heavy toll on your inbox. They're time critical. It's especially difficult to keep on top of these when if you're only working part-time, or if you're not at your desk all the time because you're working with clients. We did a webinar. We did a webinar with Entrepreneursary a few weeks back, and I mentioned the You Can Book Me app. It's so good, it's worth mentioning twice. That's a really easy app, which is a choose and book system, which syncs with your diary. So all you have to do when somebody wants to book an appointment with you is send them a link. They can then choose a time that suits them. It's all automatically gone into everybody's diary. You can also sync that up with a payment gateway if you're the type of business that needs to do that. It saves a lot of email back and forth and a lot of faff. Calendly is another app that does exactly the same thing. It's really great, very simple to use. They're very, very, very fast and simple ways to organize bookings and meetings. If you've got to organize a group meeting, instead of email back and forth, you can use tools like Doodle or Boomerang Calendar. If you organize events, there are tools like Paperless Post, which are great for invitations. They, again, will send out the invitations, but you don't have to be processing the RSVPs in your inbox. They will go straight into the, excuse me. And we're back. Sorry about that. They will go straight into, RSVPs will go straight into a database just for you to check. They're not coming in via your calendar. Other things like Eventbrite can be used even for small meetings and events. Paperless Post, for example, the reminders as well are taken care of. If you work with a team, in a small team, quick questions are probably better done via a chat function. I'm talking about kind of, yes or no questions, things that take maybe 2 minutes on each side. If it takes longer, maybe consider old-fashioned, maybe consider picking up the phone. But chat messages are great because they're quicker than setting up an email, than doing they're much quicker than doing an email with a subject and all the formalities that go with it. You can get the information that you need really quickly, and it also will order the message by person. So again, you're not kind of getting hundreds and hundreds of little short messages. If you're going to use a chat function, I will say I really, really wouldn't recommend you use that with clients. Only use it internally unless you want your clients to think that you're available to them 24/7. Also, if you're working with a team, even if there's actually only 2 of you, consider using project management tools or CRMs. They're a really great way of storing information and making sure that there's, making sure that people know what they need. So they're not having to back and forth by email asking for information or asking for status updates. Trello, Asana, Capsule CRM, Zoho, depending on what you do and how you order your work, they're all really great. They're all really, really great services, and they're not just the big businesses. Shared folders, let's not forget shared folders. Cloud storage means that, if the CRM or something like that feels like it's going to be overkill, you can have if you've got a good framework around the information for, say, clients, for example, you can reduce a lot of internal email. Penny got that? Yeah, okay. For example, I've used a really simple shared folder system with one of my clients to manage her supplier invoices. So I'd collect all the invoices into a folder. I'd have them ordered by their due date. So she had a weekly date in her diary to pop in and review everything, and then to pay anything that was due. We had a file naming system, so that she would rename the file when she paid something, and then one or other of us would drag that over into the shared folder that she shared with her bookkeeper. That's 3 people working on the same thing, no email exchange whatsoever. It worked. Everybody knew what they needed to do. There's no invoices getting stuck, nothing getting lost. Everybody knows where everything is. So that's some sort of starter ideas for you to maybe think about how you manage your information, how you can get some stuff out of the inbox treadmill. So now what do you do with what's left? What you want to aim to do is create a system which is going to allow you to triage and prioritize the emails really quickly and not leave them kind of languishing in your inbox. So what we're doing is creating a system where there are only 4 possible actions for any one of your emails. You want to read and delete it, you want to read and file it, you want to read and respond right away, and I'm talking about sort of something that takes maybe 2 to 5 minutes to respond to, or you want to transfer transfer it to your task manager so you can deal with it later. So for this system to work, you're going to need 2 fundamental things. The first thing is a folder which is labeled done, which you create in your as part of your inbox. And the second thing is a task manager. That's it. I'll explain. Your inbox at any given time should only ever contain the things that you haven't read yet or things which you are actively responding to. There is one simple rule to this, which is once you've responded to an email, you drag it into the done folder and you forget about it. I say forget about it. I mean, perhaps that's not 100% correct, but you know what I mean. You want to make sure that once you've dealt with something, it's not lingering in that inbox. It's not cluttering it up. It's not making it hard to see new space, and it's not something difficult. It's not distracting you from the thing that you need to do at that moment. If you are one of those people who is filing your emails into lots and lots of separate folders, I want to tell you to stop that right away. it's a total waste of time, and it's a massive time suck. The search functions on email are really good now. You know, you're better off putting all of your old emails into one single folder and using it to search in one place, rather than trying to search in a number of different places. Anything else that's left in your email, again, I can't stress this enough, should be something that needs an action or an immediate response. So, as you work through your email, as you work through your inbox, you're going to come across those things that only need a quick 1 or 2 line response. Something that takes kind of 2 minutes to just bash it out, send it. When you're working through your inbox, you want to be dealing with those as you go. Hit reply, type your reply, hit send, and then again, drag them into that done folder. Anything that requires a more considered or a more involved response than that goes, anything that contains an action for you maybe, that goes into your task manager. So now I'm going to move on to talk about what you do with those more involved types of emails. So you maybe are using some kind of task manager or online to-do list already. There are lots of them are available. Maybe you also love your to-do list, your paper to-do list. I'm guessing you may have been attracted to this webinar if a lot of your work comes to you via email. Whatever the case, whatever situation you're in, I would highly recommend that you find a task manager that integrates with the email client that you prefer to use. Both Outlook and Gmail have built-in systems. They're very simple, but they are super effective. In any case where you come across one of those emails that requires more time and thought before you respond to it, which contains a task that you have to do outside of your email client, you want to schedule it in your task manager. Now, here is where the time chunking method that Penny was talking about earlier really comes in handy. If you've planned out your week effectively, if you've structured it well, you're going to know exactly which time chunk you're going to ascribe that action to. The trick to doing that effectively is to schedule your task by when you're planning to action it, and not by the deadline. Secondly, you want to make sure that when you're adding something to your task manager, that you've pulled over as much information as you're going to need in order to action the task. So make sure that when you go back to the item in your task manager, you're not then having to search around looking for an attachment or looking for something else. You want to try and make sure that you've got it all available for you to just get on with it. Google Tasks, for example, if you add something to your task manager, it tags the email on the task. So it actually, you just one click, it takes you straight to the email. It's great. Once you've scheduled that email as an action in your task manager, again, you want to drag it and drop it into the done folder. You do not want it there distracting you and hanging around, distracting you from the stuff in your inbox that maybe doesn't action. It is the job of your task manager to make sure that you come back to that task at the appropriate time. Just as an aside, I'm guessing, if you're a devotee of paper lists, and depending on what kind of mood I'm in, I still use a paper to-do list to draw up my daily to-do list. You might be sitting there thinking, this is definitely not for me. You should maybe be thinking about your task manager as a kind of digital memory, maybe. So you might then spend a couple of minutes copying out your daily to-do tasks from your task manager and maybe from other sources, whatever, so that you've got one. I totally understand that sometimes there's nothing like the process of physically writing down what you have to do to kind of get you into the zone. Using this system, though, you can realistically, I promise realistically, you can get to inbox zero, even in the craziest inboxes. It's also going to stop those emails piling up on top of one another and creating that black hole where when nothing gets done. You can also use your task manager as a reminder system. So if you sent somebody an email, you can set a reminder so that you never forget to follow up on something. Nothing should slip through the net using this method. I'm pretty sure I am a dream and a nightmare to work with in equal measure because I never ever forget anything. It's not, I tell you, it is not because I have an amazing memory. I really, really, really do not. I have a system that helps me, that means that everything gets picked up at the appropriate time. What's more, this is a system that will allow you to take control and completely switch off your email for periods of time so that you can really get your head down without any distractions. Let those emails come in, it's fine. We've got a system that means that we can deal with them, we can triage them, we can prioritize them at the right time. So, once you've got your system in place, then you can start playing around with some more advanced stuff. I already mentioned filters, but you can do all kinds of clever things with rules and filters to make your email, make your inbox even easier to manage. If you've got an important client, for example, who you want to ensure that they always get a prompt response, you can set up a rule that means that they're automatically flagged in your inbox. So you can see it as soon as you go in, and you can send them an email in response. As I mentioned before, you can set up that folder for your reading materials. So, you can filter in news alerts and newsletters and stuff about your competitors that you genuinely need and want to read. Set up a rule so they bypass your inbox and they automatically go into a separate folder and they're not cluttering up your inbox. As a VA, I might be working with multiple clients at any given time. So I've set up a folder for each one of them, and I've filtered the emails relating to each client into one particular folder. They effectively act as a separate inbox for each client, even though they're all all the emails are coming into the same email address. But that way, when I'm working on projects, when I'm working on their projects, I'm not getting distracted by emails from other clients. It helps me keep my focus on one client at a time. I still, even though I've got all these other folders, I still only have one done folder where everything goes at the end. Once you've got to grips with the filters, you can use them in all kinds of creative ways to make your inbox easier to manage. But, and I can't stress this enough, you really, really want to get the fundamentals of this email system right first and get them functioning first. Make sure you've thoroughly mastered this the basic technique with the done folder and the task manager first before you move on to anything a bit more advanced. I'm going to talk about some super advanced stuff in a minute. If you really can't bear to use the task manager that's built into your email client, then there are other options available. I understand, look for something that will integrate seamlessly with your email client. Todoist is a really popular app. I understand they've just introduced an integration with Outlook, so that's worth checking out. Gmail's got loads of options like that. Again, Zapier is a tool which is mentioned up on the slide just here, which means that you can integrate your email with all sorts of other tools that you already use. You can do all kinds of clever things. They only support Gmail at the moment, but I gather they've got Outlook stuff coming down in the pipeline. So keep an eye out if that's something that is interesting you. I mean, it can do all kinds of clever things like auto-save attachments. You don't into Dropbox folders and things. You don't have to manually do it. It's great. IFTT, which stands for if this then that, also has got a number of set up clever automations and tricks that you can do you can use to manage your email. Again, mostly for Gmail users at the moment. Sorry, Outlook guys, but these are things to keep in mind after you've got the fundamental building blocks of this system in place. You know, there are things that, you know, there are things that can take you to another level, but you want to start with the fundamentals of just those two things, the done box and the task manager. So that email system that I've outlined this evening is really, really simple, but it is really, really effective. And so I've introduced it to all kinds of clients. I've used it myself in a variety of different jobs. It absolutely does work. Its power really, I think, is in its simplicity. It can work for people with very different work styles and in different industries. Like I say, you may in time want to build on it by bolting on other techniques and other applications in time, but you're more likely to be successful in the long run if you've mastered the basic techniques that I've described here. So that's pretty much it for the email system. If you want to get more productivity tips and training, then you can join us over on our Facebook group, which is called the Productivity Club. I'm going to give you a link just now. Let me see if I can make this work. Let me pop that in there. So that's us. So just to give you a flavour of what's, I'll pop the link also in the chat, just in case that's, does that work? No, okay. So the button up at there should be a button up at the top which will allow you to link straight to the Productivity Club on Facebook. Just to give you a flavour of what's going to be going on in there over the next few weeks, we're going to be running a time tracking challenge, which is going to teach you how to understand where your time is going and really analyse your work patterns, and give you the tools to really help you make the most of the time that you've got available for work. We've got some worksheets. We've got all kinds of helpful advice on how to streamline your work processes and prepare yourself in your business to outsource or to grow. So come hop in and join the conversation. If you need help with any aspect of your personal productivity as well, your time management, or you need help to streamline your business processes, then do book a free discovery call with us, the Productivity Bureau. We'd love to hear from you. I'm going to see if I can pop a link. I'm going to see if I can do the link in the chat here. Doesn't want to let me post it.
That was super. Thank you so much.
But yeah, but that's it. Yeah, that's it. So,
yeah, anyone got any questions now?
I've just joined your Facebook group and I'm really looking forward.
Yay.
I'm really looking forward to joining in the time challenge. Yeah. For all those useful tips. I can't wait to get to try them out because, you know, I use Trello, but I know that I probably don't use all the functions of it. So I'd like to, you know, try out the other
oh, well done.
the other websites in your presentation. And
oh, we've got another Trello.
yeah,
Tara
me too, Tara. The same thing with me. I use Trello.
Oh, maybe that's something we should look at again at some point, because Penny and I use Trello for you know, some of our social, you know, sort of social media stuff, our planning, and that particularly it lends itself really well to, you know, to that, so we can always see what one another are working on.
Yeah, it would be great to hear, but maybe we can do that really group to talk about how people are using it and then we can kind of filter some ideas and work out the best practices for it based on people's use. That might be great thing to do as well. I was just thinking as open the floor to a few questions. One of the things that popped up while I was getting my head round Inbox Zero the first time was what to do when you get an email that, although you can respond to it quickly, that doesn't actually, your you're also waiting on a response. So this would be the case in the situation, obviously with different meetings, but if you've managed to separate that from your inbox, it can be lots of things. It could be a quote or something like that, where it's a really simple ping back, you know, this is my address and this is what information I need out of you. But if you put it in the done file, there's a worry that you might then forget about the fact that you need a response, and that in some ways, although the onus is on them to respond, you don't want to forget that. So that's when, in some ways, it kind of falls into two camps. So the item is both something that you can respond to immediately, but also something you put in your task manager. So it's kind of like, I responded to that, it's done, but in a week's time, I need to say to X about that email that I sent them, and if they haven't responded, then that's what I need to do. So I think people can find that very hard, because then that's where they're not outsourcing their memory, because they're thinking, oh, it's okay, I'll remember that. Or they flag it in their inbox or something like that, thinking, I'll remember that. But we're not just talking about literally someone has written an email, you need to do this. We're talking about things where it could mean like chasing someone, or even just, following up on something that you wouldn't necessarily call a concrete task. Like, oh, you read something in the email, they've got their friend's birthday or their son's birthday in like 2 days, and you want to email back and say, how was your birthday, kind of thing. That kind of thing is also part of what the task manager can do. So it's basically like your memory, but online. So I think it's worth saying that can
oh yeah, absolutely. Your task manager is for the big stuff, but it's also for the little stuff as well. That follow up, that reminder, that stuff that you don't want to let slip through the net. Tara, did you have a specific question about Trello, or is there something that we might be able to, between us, we might be able to help with? Sorry, no pressure. Now I'm making you type fast. We can carry on the chat while we're waiting.
Sarah's typing away as well.
Yeah,
it's a bit harsh, isn't it? Cool, but how do you stop yourself
from making too many boards?
Yeah, I think Trello might argue that sometimes there isn't such as too many boards. A video or webinar on how to use it would be effective. Okay, right. We'll think about doing that actually. And Stop By in Group actually is a good place for is a good place for that kind of stuff. We're on the Facebook group quite a lot, so that's a good place to ask that question. Trello, yeah, I think you probably. It depends on what you're trying to. It depends on what your business is. It's difficult to give a specific answer to that, but I think you obviously need to be really strategic about what is a board is a really top level thing, and then your streams. You can have as many streams as you want. I mean, one of the things that I struggle with Trello sometimes is that it's not always that task orientated. So it doesn't have that, like, see everything that I need to do in one place thing, which I find slightly frustrating. I know a lot of people integrate it with Todoist for that particular reason. There's a good integration, I gather, with Todoist that will give you the that you can send us the sort of task orientated stuff to it, so you've got an overview of all the things that you need to do in one place.
Yeah.
Does that help, Sarah? I'm not sure. Yeah, it's a difficult one to answer in the abstract.
It can be a very difficult one to use for that. I think it's definitely got its upsides. I use.
Yeah, I know a lot of. I've seen a lot of people talk about
the dashboard and Capsule CRM. If you've done your tasks right, then it's like your personal dashboard has got every single list, like task manager. So it works a bit differently. But I haven't seen that function on Trello.
There is an integration. I know that it's really popular. There's a lot of people who use it. In the moment, I'm trying to use it for everything. You can. I mean, people. Yeah, you can use it for everything. Lots of people use it for every single thing. It's a good tool. But like I say, I think its downside, it is great to visualize what you need to do, but I think its downside really, really is that task, that task orientated stuff. So it's really easy to lose a task on a board that you haven't looked at for a while.
Yeah, that's true. I have a lot of boards for personal and for work stuff, and it just sometimes every every board that often, so things can get lost in there.
Yeah, because of it's one of the things that I have a massive frustration with it. Cool.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I guess if you had everything open up all the time, then it would just be overwhelming. I think that's why I need to find a task manager that integrates with Gmail now to try out your system.
Okay. I'm not sure I can deal with it. So Tara, you can use Google Tasks for the Gmail. That's the easiest. That's the easiest and the most simple thing that you can do. It kind of looks hidden, but you can find tutorials on. You should be able to find tutorials on YouTube probably that will show you how to do it. If you don't, pop into the group and let me know, and I can do a quick video to show you how that works.
It might be worth saying as well, Tara, that so they were pushing a beta version of Gmail called Inbox a couple of years ago, which I got on board with, and now it's actually very easy to switch between Gmail and Inbox if you need to. And Inbox is Gmail, but it is just a different visual and working space. It's not actually any different. It's not a different email client. It's the same thing. But Inbox by Gmail is built on this principle. So it has an easy, when you're in an app, it has a swipe right function where it just literally you swipe right and it goes into your done folder, or on a normal computer there's just a tick, and you click the tick and it's gone. So there's no dragging of emails or creating new folders. It also uses, if you swipe left instead of right, it goes into a task manager immediately. So then they call it a reminder system, but it's basically the same thing. But I personally actually just manually integrate it with my calendar. So it's not quite the same as a task manager, but I use my calendar as a task manager. So it's like, for me, I just have a chunk of time set out for each thing. And I kind of write it in the description of the chunk, but that's because I work with a few different clients, and so I can say, oh, this is my chunk for client, and I can write all the tasks in there and I open it up every day. So that's how I work. But yeah, that's how I've integrated it with Gmail as well.
Tara, also, if you prefer paper and pencil, like you say, the thing about the Gmail, Google Tasks is it's so super simple. So it will just give you a list. If you prefer to, you can then copy stuff onto your list if that's how you prefer to look at all your inboxes. All of your to-dos. That shouldn't take you too much time.
Yeah.
Are we?
I make the point on the last bit, isn't it, about going paperless. That actually I don't think that to-do lists often are really, you can never leave those. Like there's lots of things that we can be paperless in, but I still have like scrap paper that I know I'm going to throw away every day. Just literally a random little to-do list. And in addition to all of the paper lists and all of the online apps and everything that I'm using, it's just, I don't think you can stop having a physical piece of paper sometimes. And I mentioned a couple of other things which paper are good for. But yeah, there's been studies about how you can connect paper and like how everyone uses that for certain things. And you could say, oh, you're duplicating the work, and in some ways you are. But if it's just literally a throwaway piece of paper, and you're not trying to carry on tasks day to day in a massive filing system on paper, then actually it can be really useful just to have a little tiny task list by your desk.
Yeah, I'm totally into paper. Sometimes there's nothing better. You know, like sometimes there's just nothing better. You ain't broke. Good.
Good old pen and paper, hey?
Yeah,
Thank you both so much for your time.
no
It
worries.
was super informative, I mean, very interesting to hear about all the different technologies out there to help organize our busy lives. So I really appreciate your time and taking to prepare this presentation and to share the information with us. I look forward to also following you on Facebook and learning more from you there.
Cool.
And just one note, for those of you that don't know, I have a creche and co-working space in Old Street in London, and having the first parents networking event on February 1st. So if anyone interested, please get in touch and I can send you the link. And yeah, it will just be a really great opportunity to meet us working and freelancing like all of us. And yeah, I promise it'll be fun and informative. And yeah, it would be really nice to meet some of you in person. And so that's it from us for tonight. And thanks again to the Productivity Bureau team. And see you
Great.
guys again next time.
Yeah.
Cool.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Cool.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Sarah.
Bye. Bye.